Strange bedfellows, Occupy Wall Street and the debt collection industry. Well, the answer to the question about the Occupy Wall Street movement, such as what in the world are they going to do next, has been answered, and in a fashion that few people would have imagined. Jerry Ashton here again with 15 Minutes of Fact on WGRNradio.com to once again do my best to eliminate the ongoing and growing phenomena of Occupy Wall Street. This time I'm excited to be providing you background and details on the latest and possibly most exciting foray into the inner workings of finance and business, and it's called Rolling Jubilee. Just as Occupy earlier set up camp in the heart of corporate America and banking, the caverns and parks of Wall Street, this latest iteration, Strike Debt, and its offshoot, Rolling Jubilee, is doing the same thing, but this time in the world of the bill collector and personal debt. So casting Rolling Jubilee as a bailout of the people, by the people, Strike Debt has set up a fund to buy defaulted debt for pennies on the dollar, just like debt collectors do. That entire industry is built up in which people aggregate debt and they sell it off to each other within the debt collection industry. But the difference with Occupy and Rolling Jubilee, of course, is that instead of collecting on this debt, they are going to cause it to vanish. Now, we have two people on the phone with us today to help us understand this unusual, even aggressive approach to dealing with debt. We have Thomas Goki, a visual artist who works on large-scale collective projects. You won't believe how he's employing his student debt to further that art. And Laura Hanna, a filmmaker and co-founder of Hidden Driver Productions. Both are organizers, among many, of Rolling Jubilee, a campaign with Debt Strike. Strike Debt, excuse me. So welcome to the show today, you two. Laura, let's start with you first. What caused you to become active with Occupy, and what exactly is Rolling Jubilee?
Okay, thanks for having me. So I came to Strike Debt specifically after a visit to Montreal during the student protest movement, and I was incredibly inspired. And that student protest movement was really focused on the hikes. And what inspired me about that movement was that it seemed to be incredibly a mature, developed resistance movement with real institutional memory. So I saw these 18-year-olds that had this incredible power and were very effective. And what was striking was that they understood that they had something to lose, that was a social good. So I think that I also liked the fact that they were focusing and that they were thinking about this as the larger framework around anti-austerity and that they ought to push back. And I wanted to come back here and, join Strike Debt and start to ask and think about how we can be more effective.
Well, as Strike Debt evolved, that's when the idea finally coalesced. I know that it had been making the circles, but the idea actually coalesced of going out to the debt buying industry and buying debt from them for pennies on the dollar and then forgiving this debt in some fashion. So how did that come about, and what is the status at this very moment?
Okay, well, I would say that this idea has been floating around in activist circles for a while, and I had heard about it from a friend a couple of years ago, but we had never thought about. It was only this idea that you could actually buy debt and maybe help relieve somebody's individual debt. And so we had never thought about, no one had ever conceived of scaling it up. But that being said, I'm going to pass this to Thomas to talk about his own experience because he brought it to the group.
Great.
Right. So last October, talking to people in Zuccotti, all of my conversations ended up ending in the same place, that we should try to organize some kind of large-scale debt strike of some kind. So I ended up on a bunch of listservs of people who are trying to organize around debt, and this idea was one of the ideas that floated there. And I thought it's too brilliant not to do it. We should actually do it. And so it's for me, it's been a way to try to contribute to the movement from afar, since I was stuck upstate for most of the time. It was just a project to try to do enough research to actually make it exist. And then Strike Debt formed around May, which was just a godsend. It's what I think should have existed from the very beginning of Occupy. And so it's a collective project of Strike Debt that is pretty amazing to watch as it came together. All of the different people who have been putting so much work into it, and all the different talented people who have been involved. It's something that I think we're all very proud of.
Well, let me identify a few of these things that are your challenges. Number one, debt collectors are not exactly friendly towards people who are in debt, and yet at the same time, they seem to be willing to sell off debt that they can collect to somebody else, usually another debt collector, to start a new round of phone calls and agony for the poor person who owes that particular item. So, were you part of the people that originally reached out to the collections industry, and what was the response there?
Yeah, so this is part of what's so outrageous, is that the banks and these debt buyers are willing to take a really steep haircut on this debt. They're just not going to give that deal to you. They give that deal to one another, but they're going to expect the full amount from the debtor. So yeah, it had to start by reaching out to some people within the industry to create some relationships that would give us access to purchasing this debt. I mean, we have to buy it from a debt buyer, but we're getting it for the same rate that they sell it to each other.
Well, I'd like to explain that to people, too, that are listening. When debt is sold back and forth among these folk, depending on how old the debt is, and depending on how difficult it is to collect that debt, it can sell for anywhere from a premium of 10 or 15 cents on the dollar down to a nickel. So in other words, if I wanted to buy $1,000 worth of debt, well, let's make it $1 million. I'm really only paying 5% of the face value of that coin, and yet I'm going to call the debtor and ask for the amount in full. So why would they be willing to sell this to Occupy, or did you identify yourself as Occupy?
Yeah, we explained what we were doing, and I've spoken to people within the industry who say, "Oh yeah, I get that. My kids have gone to school and they're buried under $50,000 worth of tuition debt. We should really do something about that." So when you get them alone and you talk to them, you find that there's some common ground.
Well, speaking of common ground and still being a little bit wary, the industry flagship website called Inside ARM, ARM, which stands for Accounts Receivable Management, Inside ARM ran a story just this weekend with a headline that warned people debt buyers may see competition from Occupy Wall Street. So you certainly caught that industry's attention.
Yeah, I've been having a lot of fun reading the comments to that article. It seems like there's a range of opinion, all from let's try to sell them some bad debt and take advantage of them, to let's sell it to them because so long as we're making money, we don't care who we're selling it to this idea that nobody should sell it to us. So,
well, there will be a spectrum. There will be a spectrum of response to that, I'm sure.
We've also gotten emails from some of these people saying, "Hey, we've got some debt. We'd like to sell it to you." So that's interesting.
I'd be very careful about the debt that they're happily putting on the plate for you to look at. The next thing I want to talk about is the big People's Bailout, the variety show and telethon, and I'd like to talk.
So the telethon that we have is coming up on the 15th. This Thursday from 8 to 11 p.m. And basically we have magicians, comedians, speed lectures, and we're talking about some of the issues and weaving in the critique of strike debt around raising money to buy and abolish debt. And I think that with that, there will be some clarity as to where we stand and how our critique and how our approach is quite different from what, for example, Forbes and other people are writing. So our viewpoints, we're not necessarily aligned with, let's say, the conservatives or the neoliberals. We're using this specific mechanism, I should say, to highlight a type of inability to see clearly, to ask what value actually means today, who owes what to whom, and at what price. So I think that I feel that we've already been successful in our campaign, even though the telethon hasn't begun, because people are trying to ask these questions online as we read.
Well, speaking of Forbes magazine, Forbes.com, an author of an article there, which was titled "An Occupy Wall Street Idea We Can All Get Behind," really was quite complimentary of the end desires and the process by which Occupy and Rolling Jubilee is going through to buy debt and then to relieve people of that burden. Even though it was not exactly totally complimentary, what really amused me was that this particular author chose to identify what Occupy is doing as a profoundly conservative idea. So whether you call it conservative or progressive or this or that, apparently it has hit a nerve, because a lot of people are turning this on the internet into almost a viral event. What's happening there?
Right. So, Jerry, if you don't mind, I'm going to take this response, and then I'm going to have to leave you with Thomas, if that's okay.
You bet.
Okay, great. So I think that the main difference between us and, say, a conservative or some neoliberal who's writing on Forbes and our approach is that we're really looking at this as a type of social hack into an industry that most people don't know much about, but experience intimately on a day-to-day, which shapes their lives. And what we're calling for within Strike Debt, and what we want people to start considering, is to move away from thinking about austerity, which is very much on everyone's minds, with the recession and what's happening not only at home but abroad, and to start thinking about social goods and the idea of public wealth. So what I mean by that is that we advocate for free healthcare, for example, free education, the right to retire, et cetera, et cetera. So we are not in line with this Forbes article.
Well, thank you so much. Well, let me talk to Tom next.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, I was tickled pink by the Forbes article. I kind of liked it.
Well, I did too, and now I want to go into the nitty-gritty of how people who are listening to this podcast, as well as people who are going to be visiting different websites, are going to be able to participate to help buy this debt to make a difference in someone else's lives. One of those things that I think a movie once called Paying It Forward. Now, tickets for this that are already on sale at the website called rollingjubilee.org is $25, even though the event itself is sold out. The contribution of $25 will abolish an estimated $500 worth of somebody's debt. $250 is $5,000 worth of debt. Have you guys got any numbers or sums that you've raised so far, and what does that mean for debt buying?
Oh, well, I don't even know what the latest number is. Just online, we've raised at least $30,000 already, just by it going viral. And then with the tickets, I haven't gotten a final number from the venue as to how much we made from the tickets, but it's probably another 12,000 or so from that. So we're off to a great start already.
I can see you're going to be very close to scaring up $1 million worth of debt relief for people, thanks to the contributions that are going to be coming in. And we want to compliment and thank the artists that are going to be at that telethon. I believe we have Janine Garofalo, we have Liz Winstead, Francis Fox, Piven, Max Silvestri. I mean, it just goes on and on as to the people that are contributing their time to be on this telethon. So how does somebody who's listening to this, where do they go? What website do they go to find the streaming video that makes it possible for them to watch and participate?
So very soon we are going to be launching the rollingjubilee.org website, and everyone will be able to live stream the telethon on November 15th, which begins at 8 p.m. Eastern Time. And you can watch it live. You can enjoy the show. We're arranging viewing parties all over the country, so you can find out if there's a viewing party near you if you want to watch it with some friends, or you could just watch it by yourself on the laptop or the computer. It's going to be so much fun. I mean, it's really going to be jubilant. It's a celebration.
Well, Thomas, I cannot thank you and Laura enough for spending that famous 15 minutes with us to talk about this, and I certainly hope that we get this out viral and more people will tune in and lend a hand and put in $1. So, again, I want to thank you for your time, and I'd like to have my listener who feels that they would care to lend support and reach out to Rolling Jubilee let me count the ways. Go to rollingjubilee.org. From there you can follow links to the site of the November 15th telethon, which, by the way, will be at the Poisson Rouge in the Village here in New York City. You can't be there in attendance physically because those tickets are sold out, but online there will be live streaming from there. You can also check out the Facebook site. So if you go to Rolling Jubilee on Facebook, you'll find that. And is there a Twitter lead as well, Thomas?
Yeah, you can follow us at StrikeDebt or our StrikeDebt Facebook page.
Super. Well, this pretty much completes the interview. Is there anything you'd like to leave us with?
Oh, it's going to be so much fun. I hope people watch, and this is just the beginning. This Rolling Jubilee is meant to roll, so this is just phase one. We're going to be able to do bigger and better things than we ever imagined.
And who can say anything as an ending better than that? I wish you the best of luck. Let's see that we can't deliver tens of thousands of our fellow citizens from millions of dollars worth of debt burden. Thanks you once again, Thomas, and thanks you once again, Laura.
Thanks so much, Jerry.